I'm glad you came back. I'm Jeff Burr with the Tattooed Spirit, and today, right now, we are starting the third suit of pip cards of the Swords suit. That is the suit of air. We're going to talk a little bit about what that suit means and then how we're going to be using it later on. Maybe I have a couple good stories for you. I don't want to be boring everyone with my personal stories of how these cards work for me and how I work with these cards, but I may add some flavor. It may add some distinction and some examples of what we can look forward to after we kind of weed our way through learning just a little bit about each card. In case you haven't picked up by now, I've been changing little signs here. The sword suit is about the thinking. It's about the cognitive aspect of our lives. It's about learning. It takes into account just wisdom, the intellect, truth, confidence, even sadness, thoughts in general, and even disturbed emotions that are from those thoughts. Now, it's said that a lot of people don't like to see a lot of swords in their readings or in their descriptions of their situations because a lot of the images that we're going to be covering in the first 10 are somewhat seemingly a little bit unhappy, just like this 9. It's not exactly a happy feeling card like we've seen in the past. How the Cups had a lot of positive looking cards to it. A lot of the sword suit get this idea of the thoughts in your life causing the most problem. And that's probably the most interesting aspect of this sword being this air element suit, that it just moves from one thing to the next. And how true is that for us? How our conscious mind can be distracted at an instant, and then we get off onto something completely different. And then we start thinking about another situation that we're not in, and that perhaps was a negative situation, and then it affects your mood, it affects your emotions, and before you know it, you're doing things differently because you're in such a bad mood. Because this random thought, like air, came into your experience, you choose consciously to be focused on it. And before you know it, you're doing things in a awkward or random or things or in a way that just doesn't serve you. But that's how important your thoughts are. That's how important your conscious direction of your own thoughts are, and that's how important and how I work as a therapist and how you work as a human being, how your subconscious thoughts work. That's how we're getting these wonderful messages from these cards, is just having the subconscious sort of trickle up the deeper meaning beyond of what we kind of already know about them. This is one of my examples that I was so excited to tell you about. I was working with a client over the phone. She was in Germany, and she was 73 years old. And she was having a problem just being around orange cars. And she wasn't exactly sure what this was until a dream that she had a few days prior to contacting me. It turns out that in this dream she remembered pseudo kind of the idea or the thing that happened, that she was molested as a little girl at 13 years old in an orange car. In her entire life, she had like a repulsion, she had a very discomfortable feeling, a deep, uncomfortable feeling in her subconscious that affected her mood every time she saw an orange car. Now, that is how the subconscious works with a thought that got initiated at an early age, or actually could be up to just 20 minutes ago. Whenever your subconscious locks on an emotion to a thought, it affects your mood. It affects the entire rest of your life. This woman lived over 60 years of her life just locked up around orange cars. Something crazy as that, as small as that. But at the time where it initiated, it was this really life-changing event. Even if it was just a dream, the idea that her subconscious mind created this event so that she could deal with it. So we did some very simple therapy, hypnotherapy, worked very, very simply with one of the cards, which we're going to talk about later here, the particular card that we're going to work with, about the thought that had been haunted her, that affect her emotions, where as In all 60 years of her life, anytime she saw an orange car, thank God there's not a lot of orange cars, but whenever there was an orange car, it just brought her back to this very uncomfortable feeling. It affected her thoughts on a subconscious level, so that manifested in her feelings and emotions being really, really repulsive towards this particular stimulus. So that was my ramble about the conscious and unconscious thoughts that we have in our life moving forward. So, with the first card of the ace of it's the Ace of Swords. We see another, again, all the aces are about this gift of this clear thought. If you could imagine just like a mirror, like a hazed up mirror up here instead of where that crown is, it's kind of as if this sword is piercing through the illusion of mundane life, of mundane thoughts, just being the full it's the full expression of this air being random. It's just clear thought, getting a grip on your cognitive skills, finding the intellect to support a true way of using your thoughts to affect your emotions, which is going to direct your activities. We're just talking about the different suits here, right? You're right. We remember this. I've updated it with colors. See, we're talking about this air suit now, the suit of swords. Whenever this is not right, whenever this comes in upside down, or a lot of these cards have the sword sideways one way or the other, you are affecting your emotions. That's sort of the crossover point. It also affects what you're doing whenever you're distracted with your thoughts. And thoughts are this so ethereal, sort of so seemingly unmanageable thing, your thoughts. But they can be reined in. And when you see this card right side up, this gift of clear thought, it is a sign that whatever you happen to be working with, that is your cognitive skills are right on track, and you're thinking right about that particular subject. You're not under the illusion of somebody else's beliefs. Remember the last time we saw a straight up sword. There's only 3 cards in 78 cards where that sword is shown straight up. This is the other card that we've done and that you're familiar with. The other one is the Queen of Swords, which we'll talk about in another section with the court cards. But this is taking personal responsibility, taking your thoughts around your own life and experiences and situations and not blaming somebody else, putting the right spin on it, getting a grip on your experiences by labeling them correctly so that they serve you, not this victim stuff about, oh, I'm in this situation because of somebody else. This is the importance of the imagery of the sword being straight up and down. And we see that with the Ace of Swords. That's a long way to just talk about the initiation of this cognitive skills that we use. But I want you to understand that how important it is that we interact, that we think interaction with air and how that affects the fire, because your thoughts affect your actions. How the emotions seem to direct your thoughts sometimes. When something happens and it puts you in a bad mood in regards to your relationship, before you know it, you could be thinking that about your job, about your dog, about your parents, and then before you know it, one thing is just all being influenced, and then your earth, how you're living, how you're being in the world is completely scattered and things are falling apart. That's when it comes in reversed, like this, whenever you're not cutting through any illusions at all. You're allowing your actions to overcloud what you should be thinking that's going to serve you. You allow your emotions to overcloud where you could be and should be directing your thoughts. Any fan of the law of attraction understands the emotional guidance scale by now. I didn't do the video yet on it, but hopefully you took my suggestion in the last suit to Google the emotional guidance scale, investigate it, and understand that whenever you are at any point on that scale, as far as even just being depressed, which is like probably the lowest, to even think an angry thought, not that being angry is in any way feels good, but if you were to muscle test yourself, it feels better than just being depressed. assigning blame to your anger doesn't feel good, but it feels better than being angry. And you work your way up using your conscious direction of thinking, how can I feel better about this situation that I'm not feeling great about, that I'm not feeling satisfaction with? And you find ways to look at it, to reframe it, is how we call it in the biz, in the neuro-linguistic programming biz. We reframe our situation so that we just climb our way up the emotion, so that we're just kind of content with everything being the way it is. And then you find a way to think how you can look at it so that then you're kind of hopeful that from contentment, there's something to be hopeful about, because you've been content before, but then something happened where it turned you to hope, so it might happen again, and that gives you hope. That's how important your thoughts are in your life. You've seen the hand straight up now, getting a grip on your thoughts, straight thoughts, and how in the scheme of things, how all of these things interact and interplay together. All right? We're going to be talking about the Two of Swords next. I don't have it here. It's somewhere in my deck. I usually show you with a little tease. But trust me, you're going to want to come back and you want to check out the Two of Swords whenever it's just time for you to close off to the world and use your thoughts for other activities rather than being involved in the world. Come back. We'll see you for the Two of Swords in a moment.